Hey, what's up? I'm Jack, this is Jill, and we're the Cynical Siblings. Today we're reviewing WandaVision, Season 1, Episode 1.
Yeah, these episodes don't seem to have episode titles. They're just numbers, I guess.
That does seem to be the case, yeah.
So.
It's just Episode 1.
Yep.
Yeah.
All right. This one was directed by Matt Shackman and written by Jack Schaefer.
Yes, it was.
All right. What are you drinking?
I'm drinking Kilka. It's a Malbec, and it's delicious. How about you? What are you drinking?
I'm drinking a Riesling from Mülheimer Sonnenlei. It's a Mosel Valley Riesling. One of my favorites.
Awesome. All right. What did you think of the episode?
Yep. How about you?
I enjoyed it.
Okay.
Okay, that was the spoiler-free portion.
Mhm.
From here on out, there will be spoilers. So if you have not watched the episode, why are you watching a review? Go watch the episode, then come back and watch us, because that's super important. Okay, what did you really think of the episode?
Yeah, so we watched it a couple of times, and early on, those situational comedies where no one can communicate with anyone ever, those just give me anxiety.
Yeah.
They're so absurd, and I don't know. They're not my scene. So there was that, and then the whole plot line of this 1950s sitcom setup just felt so cringy from a 2021 perspective. Which is not to say that they did a bad job. I think that they were doing a lot to put a 1950s sitcom through a 2021 perspective, and also it's this Marvel comic book thing that's actually way more. I mean, this is not I Love Lucy or Bewitched. This is like just a completely different genre that they're filtering through this genre. So I think they did a great job of that. It's just not my
Cup of tea,
yeah, exactly.
glass of wine.
Exactly. And so the second time I watched it, I had a much higher opinion of it. I was able to notice a lot of other details. The first time through, I didn't notice that the toaster was from Stark Industries. Just some little things like that I was starting to understand. As much as I'd noticed the dreamlike qualities of it, especially toward the end, I was able to pick up on a lot more subtlety throughout it. And I did start to enjoy it quite a lot more at that point. How about you?
I really enjoyed a lot of it. I do not like old school sitcoms. I think they're pretty terrible. But I really like something that is able to take sort of something that's part of our historical Americana and create something new with it. I love that ability to take something from our past and rebuild it into something really interesting in the present. And I think the writer did an incredible job of creating that. It's so much a 1950s sitcom, and it's so much a Marvel comic book story at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
I am really impressed by the way they merged the two. And the more times I watch it, the more I see how closely knit they brought those two elements together. And I'm really impressed. And yeah, I really enjoyed it. I had to think about it a while. I don't think I enjoyed it instantly. It was one of those things that, like, at first I was like, what is going on here? But then I kind of started to pick up on more details, and I was like, oh, I'm kind of getting this, and it's kind of cool, but it's very different than anything we're used to. So I hypothesize that they're using old school sort of sitcom tropes that we normally look past. Like, well, there's a lot in this episode that they just sort of make fun of, but then they use those old school tropes to sort of tell a bigger story, or I think that's what they're doing.
I think so.
And I kind of want to dig into that because it's really interesting, and I kind of think it's really cool, and I want to see them do more of it. So I don't know, we haven't even watched episode 2 yet, so I don't know what comes next. Yeah, so let's just explore this first episode.
Yeah, all right.
So at the beginning of the episode, they have the intro sequence where they're just married and they're moving into this house, and then it's the morning and Vision is heading off to work, and Wanda is cleaning the kitchen, and the first sort of weird situation is that they have no food in the house.
Right. Yeah, the nothing around food makes sense in this whole episode. And in some ways they're playing that off as just like a Bewitched or
I Dream of Jeannie.
Thank you, I Dream of Jeannie. I was about to say I Love Jeannie,
Love,
which was not,
right, yeah,
not right.
Right.
But
I Dream of Lucy, is that the...
That's the other,
okay,
yeah.
that's the other one, yeah.
Yep. So, some of what happens around food, they pass off, I think, as kind of these tropes from this era. But on the other hand, like when I went back and thought about it again, like nothing around food happens. For example, Vision says, "I don't eat." Wanda opens the fridge, it's completely empty. She says, "Well, that explains why there's no food." Except Wanda, like, exists and is a person.
Yeah,
and
I think she needs food. Yeah,
Yeah.
I believe she still does.
Should be at least a couple things of yogurt in there,
Right.
And then
Did they have yogurt in the 50s?
yeah, I don't know if they had the individual cups.
Okay, I don't. Right. Okay, sorry. Go on.
And then like, so if neither of them apparently eats, why is she washing a bunch of dishes?
Yeah, you brought that point up
Yeah.
when we were watching, and that's a really good point. Like, what were they washing dishes from?
Yeah, and that one, like, that's one of those moments that a 1950s household where the lady of the house is washing dishes, even though she's doing it with magic, is just so commonplace, you don't even stop to think about it. And I didn't stop to think about it, I don't think, until, like, the second viewing. Like, well, why? Why is she washing dishes?
But this is one of those early moments where you're using kind of a trope that you don't have to think about. Oh, it's a 1950s style sitcom. Of course she's washing dishes at the beginning. We don't have to think about it. It's the fact that you don't think about it, that you don't realize, well, how could she be washing dishes if there's no food?
Right.
That doesn't make sense.
Right. So then they figure out that Vision mentions that there's a heart over top of the date on the calendar,
Right.
and they're trying to remember what that is. And
And neither of them will admit that they don't remember. In fact, Vision states he's incapable of forgetting anything.
Right.
And so...
Which is one of those moments that also sets them up for, like, perfectly normal sitcom banter, but at the same time...
they can't remember what this is about, and not being able to remember things is kind of a theme that runs through this episode. So kind of not understanding what took place before to get them to here is just a constant theme of this episode. So this is just another moment where things don't add up. Vision has perfect memory, but he has no idea why there's a heart on this date.
Right, and again, that just sets up this thing where they're playing into this trope that, with the big sitcoms that we're thinking of, Bewitched and I Dream of Jeannie, the magic doesn't actually make sense. Like, there's not a lot of consistency.
No.
And I feel like they're again leaning into that trope to kind of invisibilize the fact that this doesn't really make sense, like, at all.
So Vision goes to Computational Services, which is where he works. That's the name of the organization he works for. And he realizes he doesn't understand what Computational Services does. They don't buy things, they don't sell things, but they have increased productivity, but we don't know what they produce. I think this is, one more moment where we are seeing that they don't have a memory or understanding of what creates their overall reality. It's a lot of very dreamlike logic. He's in an office that does computations. The rest, who cares?
Yeah.
That's all that matters. And then, of course, he has to provide a dinner for his boss. He realizes that the boss is named Mr. Hart, and that's what the date with a heart on it is all about. Is that's the day that he's supposed to provide dinner for Mr. Hart. which is, by the way, a terrible way of communicating to anyone that this is a dinner for your boss.
Right.
Is to just draw a heart on the calendar.
Again, bad communication, and this is, I think, why this particular type of sitcom really it doesn't work for me.
Meanwhile, back at the Vision residence,
Yeah.
which is the Vision residence, even though that's both his first and last name, but
Mhm.
whatever. So at the Vision residence, Agnes comes over.
Yeah, the neighbor, and she comes in and she says, you know, I'm your new neighbor on the right, my right, not yours. And I've been trying to figure out exactly what that means, and I don't think there's any point to try and figure it out. I just find that line really funny. She comes in, you know, and she's talking to Wanda, and Wanda's saying, yep, today's very important, and they kind of decide it's an anniversary.
Right, they decided, or Wanda decides it's an anniversary
Mhm.
right there.
Mhm.
And then they start planning for an anniversary, so it's a lot of 1950s ideas of romance thrown in there.
Mhm.
I did appreciate a lot of that. And then of course Vision has realized while this is going on that, you know, this day was actually supposed to be a dinner with his boss, and so he calls Wanda and they talk past each other right away.
Yeah, completely. And so she sets up the house for and herself for an anniversary, just the two of them, and Vision walks in with his boss. But
Wait,
before that,
Yep, I was
yeah.
about to say, right before that, we have the commercial for that Toastmaster 2000, or that weird toaster that,
Mhm.
it's a weird commercial too.
So weird.
And it's shiny, the toaster's shiny, and that's,
It's got some shine. or
yeah,
something.
is that a 50s thing that we need toasters with shine? I don't know, maybe. But this thing can toast and meatloaf and pie and open-faced cheese sandwiches, and this is not a toaster oven.
Right.
This is a toaster. The stuff goes this way, not this way.
Yeah.
That's a problem. You don't put open-faced cheese sandwiches this way. It's a bad decision. Don't do it.
Well, we have this thing called gravity here on Earth.
Oh yeah,
Mhm.
yeah. No, that's everywhere.
Yeah, when things get hot, like they tend to respond to gravity in different ways.
Yeah, and then they go down into your toaster. It's bad.
Mhm.
Don't do it.
Mhm.
But it is a Stark Industries product, so maybe they've reversed gravity.
Oh, that would make sense.
Yeah, that's how it happened. It's really interesting too that when they, you know, everything's in black and white.
Mhm.
They cut to the pictures of the food, the meatloaf, the pie, the open-faced cheese sandwich. Then they cut back to the image of the toaster, and the light that was blinking in black and white before is now blinking red,
Mhm.
and it's speeding up and it's making a beeping noise as if it's about to explode.
Mhm.
So that's weird.
Mhm.
And I have no idea what to make of that. I've tried to think of what that connects to in comic book history, and I cannot think of it. If someone knows what this relates to in the Marvel universe, you know, let us know. I cannot figure out what they are
Yeah.
relating this to.
No, and this is a really minor detail, but like they start out with a 2-slot toaster, and then this one is obviously a 4-slot toaster, but they don't put 4 pieces in. They put like
2 pieces in,
cat-a-corner to each other.
or
And
it looks like that at a moment. I'm not sure
Yeah.
if they do or not, but it looks like it for a second.
I'm pretty sure, like the way that they put it in, just the orientation seemed odd. And I don't know if that means anything or if that's just
Probably
like
not,
a
but
marketing thing. Like if you show a clock in a commercial, it's supposed to be at 2 o'clock because that, I don't know, makes your brain happy or something. I'm not sure. But I'm wondering if it's maybe that kind of an advertising technique,
does
or
2 o'clock make your brain happy?
I mean,
I was just asking because you brought that up. I've never thought about what time makes my brain happy.
yeah, there's something about like the way that the hands. Yeah. Anyway,
Is this a marketing thing?
this
for
is a
reals?
marketing thing
Oh,
for
wow,
reals. I
that's
am
real.
not joking.
Okay.
Yeah.
I did not realize that 2 o'clock makes my brain happy.
Yeah, this is a real like
Okay, now I know.
marketing thing.
I'm now gonna mark 2 o'clock like every day. I'm gonna be like, I am now happy.
Well, no, but yeah, it has to be on an analog clock. It can't be digital.
I don't have an analog anymore.
Yeah, me neither.
All right, if you have an analog clock, look at your clock at 2. You're gonna be so much better for the day.
Right.
You know, that's just the cynical siblings helping you out.
There you go.
All right. So after the toaster, the Harts come over for dinner.
Yep.
And then things are weird in the kitchen. Food goes awry. There's a lot of Bewitched style like weirdness going on, which I enjoyed for the most part. It seemed really super lighthearted. I didn't feel a lot of drama around that, so I don't know. It just sort of flowed with the entire style of the show.
And again, it's just this other way that nothing around food makes any sense. You have Wanda, who can like magic rings into place, and who can magic a whole dress into place, and all of that, and can't put a dinner together. And I don't know if that's just lighthearted comedy, not taking things too seriously, like we tend to do when we watch and geek out over the MCU. Or if that's just like one more way that this world doesn't really work.
Right.
There's something about food that never works very well.
I like that about this, is that on one hand, I always take everything Marvel pretty seriously. They do really tight writing, and they draw a lot of connections. But at the same time, they're really playing into the storytelling style of the 50s and the early 60s. And so I'm not sure where this is supposed to be just, a sort of trope of the period, or where this is actually supposed to be a major plot element, or at least a subplot element, or some sort of plot element. And I like the fact that they keep playing with those factors. You're not sure, is this just sort of playing into the style, or is this an actual statement about the plot? I love that part of the show.
Yeah, and then you get into, they finally get dinner ready in, like, the timing on none of the timing on any of this makes sense. There's a lot of logistics that don't actually
there's
make
an
sense.
Anniversary, but she still hasn't made dinner for them.
Well, he doesn't eat. And
Well,
apparently
I
neither
know,
does
but doesn't she?
I don't
Except
know.
she had a chocolate-covered strawberry.
Right, and then like on top of that, like within 3 seconds, Mrs. Hart goes from "Wow, I feel kind of woozy" to all of a sudden there's like a giant breakfast, like on, and the table is already set, and you kind of see it happening. But dude, like making breakfast takes a minute. You know, you don't go
But
straight from.
I don't know. She's the
But
Scarlet Witch.
she couldn't do that before,
She's-
right? Like
it's
it just
bewitched.
never. And then you never see them eat a bite.
Don't you?
No,
Okay.
I checked.
You
they-
did. Okay.
I am not convinced you actually. I cannot tell you whether or not you see them pick up a fork. I am clear. I watched.
Mr. Hart's holding a fork at one point in time.
Okay, but I don't. You don't actually ever see anyone eat, which again
Which
is a
is-
TV thing.
Which is also relevant because Mrs. Hart, I almost called her Kitty. Mrs. Hart starts to, ask questions, of Wanda and Vision. When did you get married? Where did you come from? Why don't you have kids? Just basic questions. And this is really important because Wanda and Vision realize right here at this moment that they really don't remember how they got here. This is where the dream logic really comes into play because they cannot remember how they got here. They don't know where they are. Well, they know where they are, but they don't know how. They don't know any pieces that brought them here. They're just sort of they're just sort of dropped into this space, and so they're not able to ask the questions, and they're kind of stuttering and stammering. And then Mr. Hart starts to, for some reason, demand that they have answers to these questions.
Why can't you answer these questions?
Yeah, he starts pounding the table.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a little over the top, even for the angry boss trope.
Yeah.
And then he starts choking. And I think this is the most important part of the episode.
Absolutely. Which again, you haven't actually seen any character eat, but he starts choking.
Well, he's also speaking really clearly, yelling and demanding things, and then he starts choking. Like, why didn't he take a second to swallow that food and then start yelling? Like, why is there? It's just weird.
Yeah, it doesn't quite work. Which again is a TV thing where, I mean, you have actors sitting there for multiple takes trying to do this. You know, I'm sure they're not going to want to keep shoveling,
Food into their mouths.
Yeah, room temperature food, in. So I do get that part. But at the same time, it keeps coming back. Like, is this one of those TV tropes that normally you would kind of just look past, but is actually a thing? Anyway, yeah. So he starts choking all of a sudden,
and then you picked up on this well before I did, but Mrs. Hart's, first of all, she looks at him when he first chokes a little bit and says, "Oh, stop it," you know, this is silly, like stop, like I don't know, like the first time she says it, it's more like you're eating too fast. It's very casual. She's not assuming he's choking for real.
Stop being so dramatic.
Or stop being so
it.
dramatic, yeah. But then he keeps choking, and she kind of does that nervous laugh, like, stop it, you know. But I thought, and like I said, you picked up on this before I did. At one point, the camera's looking straight on at her, and she turns to her left and says, "Stop it." And Wanda's to her left. It is like she turns to Wanda and is asking or imploring Wanda to stop it. As if there's some understanding that this is Wanda's reality.
Yeah, and it is this weird. This actress is really good at this too. What was her name?
Deborah Jo Rabb, I think. Something.
Okay.
Rub. Oh
Okay.
man, yeah, she played Kitty on that '70s show. I really like her.
She's so good at that character. So I'm thinking of in that '70s shows when you see so many scenes for a couple of seasons where she just laughs something off. And then later on, you start to figure out that that's how she deals with things being really, really horrible.
Yes.
Someone being a complete and total jerk, and she has this laugh that means this is the socially acceptable way that I can get out of this situation. And so she's so good at those subtleties, and she nails it in this scene.
I think so. Yeah, I really love this scene. This is such a good scene. This is sort of what makes this whole episode work for me, that there's all this sort of dream logic going on, that they all these hints that they can't remember things. Vision, who can't forget something, can't remember or can't figure out what the calendar date is for, and there's just all those little clues that things don't line up, and it's sort of laughed off. I mean, there's a laugh track throughout all of it, to even let you laugh it off, that this is just a TV trope. But it's all kind of adding up, that things aren't making sense. And then when Mrs. Hart turns to Wanda and is imploring her to stop it, it kind of breaks that sense that, like, we all, like, everyone knows this isn't real. And then I cannot help but think that, Wanda and Vision can't remember their past, and Wanda wants to be in this sort of surreal reality with Vision. Vision's dead in the MCU right now, and instead of just sort of letting that moment pass, Mr. Hart is demanding that they tell them. He's pounding the table. Tell me who you are, where you come from, when did you get married, why don't you have children? These are easy questions. Why aren't you answering these? And then he starts choking. And I just kept thinking, like, this is like almost like an immunoresponse to a pathogen. It's like Wanda's psyche is choking him as an immunoresponse because she wants to stay in this reality with Vision. Or this is, obviously why I'm hypothesizing. And so when he chokes, it's Mrs. Hart imploring Wanda to save him.
Because Wanda does. She tells Vision, right? Because neither of them are moving at that
right.
point.
Neither of them move for a second. There was almost, it almost switches styles in my mind in the way that it frames everything. So it's this kitschy 1950s, early 60s sitcom, but when he chokes and falls over, as it moves between Mrs. Hart, Wanda, and Vision, it has this more like old school horror movie vibe, the way everything's framed, the way everything's lighted. I just got that vibe right away. So the
close up framing on Mrs. Hart's face as she keeps saying stop it was just so I don't know, Psycho or just Hitchcock. It was very
Hitchcockian. I thought the way everything was lit and the way everything was framed,
and that just like something dramatic's happening, and just that way that like no one's reacting really.
But the tension keeps building.
Yeah.
And there's this pause as everyone's trying to figure out what to do with the tension. Very Hitchcockian. I love that. I just love how they brought that element into a style that sitcoms didn't have this style in it. I love how they merged that so effortlessly. Yeah, I just, kudos to the director and writer.
Yeah, and I just, so when Mrs. Hart again keeps saying "stop it" to Wanda, and it still keeps doing it in this sort of like, "Hey, stop it, stop it, stop it," it's just this really like awkward, creepy way. And as soon as you said response to a pathogen.
Right,
is
it
the
was an
thing.
immune response.
Yeah, so that made me think two things. One, that started to make everything like tie together better. But then the problem that I have with that is if Vision's dead and Wanda has effectively conjured him, why is he at work asking questions?
Yeah, that's a
Thinking for
good point.
himself.
I hadn't thought of that.
Right?
There's-
Like it still doesn't add up.
Because that's right, that's his story, not
Yeah.
hers, right? That's a really good question. I hadn't
Yeah.
thought of that. So,
So I agree with you.
has she conjured
And-
him, or is he back?
Right.
Yeah, okay, that's good. Yeah,
Yeah,
cool.
thanks.
I had
Yeah.
not thought of that. Nice.
Yeah.
And then of course Wanda looks at Vision and tells him to save Mr. Hart, and so
Mhm.
he jumps in there and uses his abilities to save Mr. Hart, and then.
Snaps right back to comedy.
Yes, exactly.
So weird.
He stands up, he looks at his watch and says, "Oh, look at the time, it's time to go." "Well, son, you get the promotion," and then him and Mrs. Hart leave.
Yeah.
It's like reality just, like you said, it just changes right there. Like
Mhm.
everything just switches back to comedy. So it goes through this whole entire comedy trope, sort of hits this like Hitchcock horror moment,
Mm-hmm.
and then goes right back to that 1950s,
Mhm.
1960s style comedy. And it's not jarring when it switches from the comedy to the horror.
Mm-hmm.
I thought that was seamless, but when it switches back to the comedy, it is jarring.
Mm-hmm.
And I like that too.
Mhm.
I like the fact that it just creates this moment of confusion. Love that.
Yeah.
So I liked it.
Yeah. Actually, as we're talking about it more and dissecting it, I am starting to appreciate some of the subtleties more.
Yeah, I hope they keep adding little pieces on there, and that I get to overanalyze
All of
these
it.
episodes more in the future. This is fun stuff.
Yeah.
And are we at the end?
Yeah, I
That's
think
the
we're
end.
at the end. Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. I mean, there's,
One more thing I want to bring up as they close the credits, or
Mhm.
they go to credits. Obviously, they go into that like full colors image
right, with the computer and
with
everything.
the computer and everything, and there's this weird sword logo, and I can't figure out where that is in the Marvel universe. So if you know what the sword represents in those scenes, let me know. There is, I know, in addition to S.H.I.E.L.D., there is also S.W.O.R.D., which deals with extraterrestrial issues. But I don't see how that would be related to this situation. So I don't know if that S.W.O.R.D. is part of some other organization within the Marvel universe. I can't figure out where that's related to, but
I mean, we do have aliens in the MCU now.
we do now, yeah.
As of Avengers, so.
Well, yeah.
And
So
the Skrull have gotten involved
the
and all
Skrull
of
are
that.
there, so yeah, we've seen the Kree, and obviously the Asgardians are kind of treated as mythical aliens.
Yeah. So you asked about the S.W.O.R.D. logo, and if anyone has any information on that. This is very unrelated to that part, but I am very curious. Like, this thing of inviting your boss over for dinner in order to like
Right,
prove
yes.
yourself like within the company and like move toward management.
Did that ever really happen?
Was that real?
Yeah, because I know this is something that shows up in the old school
Like
stories.
all the time.
But was that ever real? Because I don't think it happens today. I've never had dinner with my boss to get a promotion. So
Yeah.
is that real? Does that really happen?
I feel like there's some weird. I feel like there's some laws around that or against. I feel like HR would have a problem with that.
Something. Yeah. Nowadays you wouldn't be allowed to do that. I don't know.
Or at least, only in a small company or something. I don't know. I'm just curious if folks have any like knowledge from that time period, if that was a real thing or just a trope. I'm really curious.
Yeah.
All right.
that was
Yeah.
that was our first review.
All right. I think we reviewed a thing. Go
All
us.
right, go us.